Hey guys, welcome to Jaxbeautifulyou. In today's video, we are going to be ranking my Natasha Denona palettes. Now, I was a little bit hesitant to do this video because I only have 10 Natasha Denona eyeshadow palettes. I don't have all of the palettes that she has released. I really didn't get into Natasha Denona until a little bit later on, so I don't have a lot of the like older OG kind of Natasha Denona palettes. So I thought maybe, I shouldn't do this video, but then I just realized like it's not that serious. It's okay to, just rank what you have. So I'm going to do it because it sounds like fun to me. And also the Sephora VIB sale is coming up, and I thought this video might be helpful for some of you that might be interested in trying Natasha Denona and you're not really sure what palette is right for you. That is a great time to save. But if you're new here, hi, my name is Jackie. I do beauty, special effects, and perfume videos on this channel. If you are into that kind of thing, then please subscribe. Also, if you would head over to my Instagram and follow me over there, it is also Jaxbeautifulyou. If you are interested in seeing me rank my Natasha Denona palettes from least liked to most loved, then just keep on watching. All right, you guys, starting out in the number 10 spot is my Natasha Denona Love Palette. Now, that might surprise some of you. I really, really love this color story a lot. This is just such a beautiful color story. I love pinks and purples, and I would rank this a lot higher, but I got a bad batch. So when I first got this palette, I didn't have a YouTube channel yet, and I was watching, some trusted people that I'm subscribed to, and they were reviewing this palette, and some of them were saying that this palette is amazing, and then some of them were saying it was terrible, and I couldn't figure out why there was such a divide in the reviews. And so I found out that there was a bad batch that went out, and I was unlucky enough to get one of those bad batches. I do have the bad batch code, and unfortunately that's just, well, it is what it is. Now, I am going to be decluttering some of these Natasha Denona palettes today because I am kind of in this declutter mode where I'm just getting rid of anything that I don't absolutely love and that I'm not using. However, I'm not going to be decluttering this one because it's the bad batch code and I don't feel right passing this one on to somebody else. I do feel like I can still use this palette. It's not absolutely horrible in my opinion. I can make it work, but I do have to put some work. I have to put some effort into it. It's not the normal Natasha Denona quality at all. But I still really love this color story, and this would be ranked a lot higher if it was the normal one. But I didn't get the normal one, so it's in the number 10 spot. All right, up next, I am going to probably get some hate for this. I don't think that a lot of people are gonna agree with me on this one because I think this is a very well-loved Natasha Denona palette, but this is the bronze palette. This is in the number 9 spot for me just because I don't really go for this color story very often. I'm not the biggest neutral person. I also find that a lot of these shades are really repetitive. I feel like a lot of these shimmers, once you put them on the lid, they look pretty similar to each other, and there are a couple of mattes in here too that I find to be pretty close to each other as well. It is a beautiful palette, and the quality of this palette is out of this world fantastic. There's not a dud in this palette. So as far as formula is concerned, this palette is amazing, but I'm not in love with the color story, and I'm not in love with the fact that I feel like there's too many similar shades in this palette. So I actually am going to be decluttering this one because I just feel like I don't use it. So this one is going to be out of my collection, but if this is your color story and you really love these warm tone neutrals, I would recommend this palette simply because the quality is so good, you guys. It's really good. But I'm not using it, so I'm going to pass this one along. Next up, I have the Natasha Denona Glam palette. I know a lot of people are going to be surprised about this one because I think this is also a very well-loved palette. I think a lot of people love these cool tone neutrals, and I do too. I really do love these cool tone neutral shades a lot, but I do feel like I want something a little bit bolder, and I have a couple other cool tone palettes in my collection that I prefer over this one, even though the quality of this one is just, again, amazing. There are no duds in this palette. Quality wise, it is fantastic. It is a really, really beautiful palette. So if you love cool tone neutrals, I would recommend this one for sure if you're gonna get use out of it. But I never use this palette ever. I just don't. I've used it a couple of times when I first got it, but it is just sitting in my collection. So this one is gonna go as well. I will be decluttering this one. But you know, even though I'm decluttering it, it doesn't mean I don't recommend it. I realize that there are other people out there that have different tastes than I do. So I'm not gonna sit here and tell people that they shouldn't get this palette. If this is your vibe, it's a great palette. It really is. So I do like the quality, but I'm not super obsessed with the color story. So I'm gonna pass this one along. All right, in the number 7 spot, I have the Natasha Denona, and this is the Mini Love palette. And I actually really, really like this palette. I think the color story of this is amazing and the quality is really good. There's no duds in here either. It's just a very beautiful, soft, romantic type of look. The two mattes in here are really, really good, and the shimmers are really good as well. If I'm in the mood for like a softer pinky purple kind of look, this is definitely an easy reach. I would highly recommend this palette if you like these colors, if this is kind of your color story. I really do like it a lot. I don't reach for it a ton just because I'm not always in the mood for these shades, but if I need something quick, easy, I don't have to think about it, and I'm in the mood for something a little softer and a little more just kind of romantic, this is really great for like around Valentine's Day, which is when I think that this was released this year. And yeah, I think it's just a beautiful palette. I really like it. I'm definitely going to keep this one, and I do recommend it. The rest of these palettes are so good that I had to put the palettes somewhere, you know what I mean? I know this is kind of ranking a little bit lower, but that doesn't mean it's not an amazing palette. I love it. It's just I had to put it somewhere because all the other ones are so great too. All right, up next in the number 6 spot is the palette I'm wearing on my eyes today. And this is more up my alley for like a cool toned neutral type of palette, even though I would consider this more like a smoky type of palette. It is super beautiful. I really, really love this color story, and the silver in the middle here is gorgeous. It's what I have all over my lid. I love this palette. I was a little freaked out with this matte right here, this black matte, because it swatches horrendously, but on the eyes, it performs beautifully. So there's no duds in this palette. I think this is beautiful. I highly recommend if this is your type of color story, if you're looking for something vampy and dark and smoky with a little bit of like metallic silver going on. If you are into that kind of look, this is fantastic. I really, really like this one, and I am keeping for sure. All right, up next, we have one of my personal favorite Natasha Denona palettes, but I had to rank it a little bit lower for a couple of reasons. But we are talking about the Triochrome Palette, and it looks like this. When this palette was released, I was super excited because I love purple and green eyeshadow, and I felt like this was the Natasha Denona palette for me. I absolutely love this palette. I think it's beautiful. However, it is a Triochrome palette, so people were disappointed in this palette because there weren't enough triochromes. There's only 3 of them. And then the triochromes aren't really triochromes. They're more like duochromes. You're really not going to get 3 shades out of these shimmers in the middle here. I can see 2 of them. My favorite is this one right here. This is beautiful. It shifts from like a green to like an orangey shade, and I think it's gorgeous. Now, I love the quality of the mattes in this palette, and I do love the shimmers. Even though they're not triochromes, I still think they're super beautiful. However, I can understand the disappointment that people had on this palette because they wanted more triochromes and they wanted them to, you know, actually be triochromes. So completely understandable. So I didn't really want to rank this one too high, even though it's one of my personal favorites. This is an expensive palette. This is one of her $129 palettes. So, you know, if you were really hoping for triochromes, I wouldn't recommend this. If you don't really care that much about that and you just want a beautiful purple green palette with amazing mattes and some really pretty shimmers, then yeah, this palette would be great for you. But if you're expecting it to be more than that, then you're going to be disappointed. So I personally love this palette so much. I think it's gorgeous, Love the color story of this, but yeah, just kind of keep that in mind. This is a very expensive palette and you need to get exactly what you want if you're gonna, you know, put down that kind of cash. All right, up next we have the Mini Gold palette. This is such a beautiful palette. The quality of this palette is just absolutely fantastic. Again, no duds. Look at this color story, you guys. I think around the holidays, Christmas time, I don't know why I always think of this palette for Christmas Eve. Always. I just love using this palette around that time of year. Wintry, Christmassy vibes. It's just so pretty. It's so elegant. It's so easy to wear. You don't even have to think about it. The eye look is just there for you. You just boom, put it together and it looks fantastic. The shimmers are sparkly and gorgeous. These like greenish tones at the end here are just beautiful. I love this palette. This is a complete and perfect palette to me. You have your, you know, lighter transition shade. You have this beautiful shade here. And then you have a shade that, you know, you can use to darken up the outer corners or use as kind of like a liner. And then you have two absolutely gorgeous shimmers. I think it's beautiful. I really, really love this one. This is definitely my favorite mini that I own, and this will never be decluttered. All right, in the number 3 spot, I have the Natasha Denona Retro Palette. I was super happy with this palette, you guys. This is gorgeous. I just am a really big fan of this color story. I think that this is a beautiful, like universally flattering color story. I feel like so many people look so good in these colors, and these are the type of tones that I feel the prettiest in. If I'm gonna go out on a date with my husband, I usually gravitate towards these types of colors because I just feel like these plummy, wine, berry tones really just make my eyes pop, and I think they look great on just every color eye, you know, green eyes, blue eyes, brown eyes. It just looks so good on everybody, and I think that it's just a beautiful color story. I think it's such a wearable palette when I'm not in the mood for something dramatic, which is not very often, but when I need something for work or just something kind of toned down, this is such an easy reach. You can't screw this palette up. You just can't. Any of these colors put together is going to go together, and it's just beautiful. Fantastic quality, not a dud in the palette. 100% recommend this palette. I did a full dedicated review on the palette, so if you missed that, I will link it above. But yeah, this one is fantastic. If these are your types of tones and you like this color story, I highly recommend this palette. Okay, the next palette is in the number 2 spot. I had to put this up there, even though this is kind of a polarizing palette. When this palette came out, the comments on Tread Mood were hilarious because there were people who were so excited, and then there were people who were just like not having it. And I was one of those who was super, super excited because I was waiting for this palette my whole life. This is the Circo Loco palette. I love this palette, you guys. This is gorgeous, you guys. Gorgeous. If you like colorful eyeshadow like I do, this is a dream come true because Natasha Denona does a lot of like neutral, softer, kind of toned down eyeshadow looks because I think that's what's, you know, the most popular. That's what most people are looking for. But for someone like me who loves to play with color, this was a dream come true. When I saw the promo pictures for this, I was so excited because I've been waiting for this palette from Natasha Denona. I love colorful eyeshadow, and every single one of these shades performs so well. This is such a beautiful palette. The only thing I was a little tiny bit disappointed in was this orange shade right here, this shimmer shade. It's still really, really beautiful, but I had to build it up to get the intensity that's in the palette. It's kind of a softer orange, but you have to take some time to build it up. But it does build up, so there's that. Other than that, everything else in this palette is just fantastic. Now, this is one of her more expensive ones. This is the 129, so you have to really like this type of palette. Some people really didn't like the way this palette is laid out. It does look like a crazy circus, you know? There's colors just kind of like thrown around everywhere, all willy-nilly. And some people were like, whoa, what do I do with that? You know, it's kind of hard to put looks together. You know, you really got to sit down and think about it and, you know, get your creative juices flowing. And some people just don't have time for that. You know, they want looks that, you know, the palette is curated in such a way that they can easily put looks together. So I can understand that for sure. I did a couple of looks with this, and I also did a video where I kind of explained how you can put looks together using color theory. So I'll link those in the description box if you're interested. But for me, this is perfect because when I'm in the mood to play, I love palettes like this. I love palettes that make me like stop and have to think. And once you really look at the palette, you see there are so many colors that go together, and there are so many different looks that you can do. I have so much fun when I play with this palette. Like I said, the quality is fantastic. The colors are vibrant and wonderful. And yeah, I just think this is so, so fun. So fun. So I highly recommend this if you think that this is your cup of tea, if this is your color story, if you like color and you like to play, then yeah, I would definitely recommend this one. All right, and if you have watched my channel at all, you won't be surprised about which one is in my #1 spot. It's been in my #1 spot for a really long time. It is not only my favorite Natasha Denona palette, but it is also my favorite eyeshadow palette that I own in my entire collection, and that is the METROPOLIS palette. You guys, this palette has been on the throne for a long time and nothing has removed it. Yeah, I just think this is so good. I use this palette all the time, as you can see. It's kind of filthy, sorry. But it's just a very well-loved palette. I'm kind of surprised, like I've told you guys before, this is a very neutral palette. So for this to be my #1 for someone who loves color as much as I do, that has to tell you something because the quality of this is so good. There are so many amazing textures in this palette. The cream to powder matte formula that she has in here is one of my all-time favorites. And she's been incorporating that into a lot of her other like newer palettes. A lot of the ones that I talked about today has that formula. And I'm a big, big fan of that formula. I think it's so easy to use, super blendable, easy to build. You have complete control over how you want the eye look to go, if you want to make it more dramatic or if you want to make it softer. That formula really gives you a lot of control in my opinion. The shimmers in here are just beautiful, but there is enough color in here to kind of satisfy my colorful needs, you know? There's pops of green, blue, red, orange in here. And yeah, I think this is such a beautiful, well done palette. I think if you're really curious about Natasha Denona and you're not sure what palette is for you and you kind of like a couple of pops of color, but you also really like neutrals, I think this is such a good palette. I love it. It's my favorite. It's #1. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. And she's still on the throne, you guys. So I'm keeping all of the Natasha Denona palettes I talked about today except for these two. The Glam and the Bronze palette are going to be leaving my collection. So let me know in the comment section below which one is your favorite. What is your like holy grail Natasha Denona palette? Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. I hope everybody's having an amazing day and I will see you in my next video. Bye!